Now for me to call Julian Sturdy.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. May I first start by paying tribute to the Honourable Member for Wirral South for her excellent contributions, and also my friend and the Honourable Member for Brighton Kemp Town and Wyre Forest for their excellent contributions in their maiden speeches as well. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for you to give me this opportunity to take part in today's debate. So I stand here making my maiden speech on my 39th birthday. I'm filled with I had to think about that this morning, exactly how old I was. I'm filled with a great sense of honour and pride, but most importantly, a feeling of determination to make sure I do not let the residents of York Outer down who have put their trust in me, and represent them to the best of my ability over the coming years. York Outer is not the catchiest name for a new constituency. However, one thing the name can't take away is the huge privilege I have to be the first MP to represent this new seat. York Outer is a ring around the city of York, taking in all the villages and communities on the edge of our great Yorkshire city. In essence, a donut seat. I think the only one in the country. I realise I'm going to have to watch my weight over the coming years, as the connotations could be a problem. Being a new seat means I have a number of distinguished predecessors that I'd like to pay tribute to, two still serving in the House and two who have retired. I start in no particular order and look at the former member for Rydale. John, who was a very hard-working, extremely well-liked Member of Parliament, started his political career as a local councillor in North Yorkshire County Council. He had a fantastic grasp of local issues affecting Rydale, and I've been knocking on doors campaigning for the last 4 years. There was a phrase that greeted me on many occasions when discussing local issues. The support we've received from John on this issue has been fantastic. He will be sorely missed in the House. I also have the great privilege to have my honourable friend, the newly elected member for Thurston Moulton, as one of my predecessors, and gave me tremendous support during my time as a local councillor in the Old Vale of York constituency. And as a local farmer, I also pay tribute to her tireless work and support for local rural communities and agriculture, and over the years I know that work will continue, and I'm delighted to see her back in the House. The former member for Selby represented the southern area of my new constituency from 1997, and John and I have a number of things in common. Firstly, both born and bred Yorkshiremen, and exceptionally proud of it. Secondly, our support for Yorkshire County cricket, and I must pay tribute to all the work John did to try and keep Test match cricket on terrestrial TV. Thirdly, the great dedication to his local community and constituents, highlighted by the number of committed Conservative voters who would tell me, "I've never voted for John, but he's been a brilliant MP." And I hope over time committed Labour voters will say the same about me, or might even vote for me. This is probably where the similarities end. However, John's independent spirit, friendly approach and support for our great county of Yorkshire in the House will be sadly missed. And last but by no means least, I must pay tribute to the Honourable Member for York Central, who is now representing the centre of the York Outer seat. And it's a great privilege for me to be making my maiden speech with you in the chair. Thank you very much. Hugh represented the City of York since 1992, taking over from Conal Gregory. Hugh's respect and experience among the House in York has been built through his dedication and work to his constituents, and to the causes he has championed over the last 18 years, serving on the International Development Committee and chair and founding member of the African All-Party Member Group. I'm delighted to see him appointed as Deputy Speaker, albeit on a temporary basis, and it certainly goes to underline the high esteem he's held in the House that he has got this position. Given the links between our two seats, it is going to be very important that on certain issues, politics are put to one side and the Honourable Member for York Central and I work together, putting the issues of our great city first above party politics. And I know we'll be able to do this. York is undoubtedly one of the most inspiring cities of our country. Steeped in history, stunning architecture, surrounded by beautiful countryside, offering charming and wholehearted Yorkshire welcome. I know I sound like a representative of the York Tourist Board, but I count myself extremely privileged to live on the edge of this great city. I can't think of a better place to bring up my young family, And I know that now I have the opportunity to put something back into my local community is a great honour. From the urban fringes like Dringhouses and Woodthorpe, Rawcliffe, to the more rural towns such as Haxby, to the villages like Strensall in the north, to Elvington in the south, Dunnington in the east, to Rufford in the west. One thing all the different communities have in common is that they make up this new seat is that they all see York as its main centre and the provider of the essential facilities for it. With this in mind, I would like to raise a number of issues that have an impact on my constituency. Investment in local infrastructure in and around York is crucial to its long-term success. Local transport is a classic example of this, from our poor road network and the infamous York Northern Ring Road, which is becoming permanently gridlocked and slowly strangling our city, affecting future business investment and putting current businesses under threat, to our disjointed rural bus services, to the need to access future rail halts. Sadly, for too long, the previous government has short-changed our region on transport funding, and our local council has not had the vision to put forward a long-term plan that can take our city forward, opting for short-term solutions to an ever-worsening problem. This has to change, and this is something I will pursue over the next few years in Parliament. Another issue I have to raise is a threat to our green belt around York, brought about by the top-down approach of planning targets imposed on this House and on the City of York Council. I'm delighted to see that Her Majesty's Great Speech included a bill to devolve great powers to councils and neighbourhoods and give local communities control over housing and planning decisions, so enabling York's green belt to be protected for future generations. With respect to today's debate on European affairs, I must confess that I have a rather personal connection to all things Europe. My father, Robert Sturdy, is a Conservative MEP, and given that it's under his watchful eye that my own passion for politics flourished, I shall always have a keen interest in European matters. If only to hold my own at the dinner table, which I can say can get quite heated from time to time. But on a more serious note, I must be grateful to have the opportunity to speak in this debate and raise one of the key issues that constantly was brought up on the doorstep during the election campaign. This issue was, of course, the previous government's abject failure to fulfil its long-standing pledge to hold a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. The previous administration's decision to deny the people of this country such a vote was frankly a devastating blow to those who care passionately about the sovereignty of this House. Indeed, I fear the decision not to fulfil the promise of a referendum further damaged public trust in our politics and politicians, and I therefore welcome the new government's determination to improve political accountability, openness and transparency. Europe has always been a contentious issue, and I'm sure it will continue to be the case here in Westminster. But back in York Outer, I can assure the House that a sizable majority of my constituents seem to share my concerns about the recent transfer of power from Westminster to Brussels. Put quite simply, I firmly believe that we cannot allow any further erosion of powers from this Parliament without allowing the public to directly express their will on such important constitutional amendments. As such, I welcome the European Union Bill as set out in the Queen's speech last week. The Prime Minister is quite right to ensure that people of this country are granted a referendum before any future treaties handing over powers to the European Union are approved by government. In my view, the government should seek to be proactive, positive and a friendly partner in Europe, particularly when it comes to promoting British business and trade. And in other key areas too, the EU has a potential to be a force for good as we tackle global poverty, the rise in global competitiveness and get to grips with global climate change. Britain should play a full role in ensuring that the EU's voice is heard loud and clear in an increasing diverse global stage. However, we will not be able to play such a role if the boundaries and limitations of the EU are clearly drawn. The public need to believe in the worth of the EU, and in my view, that will only happen when we strengthen and protect further our own democracy here in Westminster. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.